The New Hampshire Department of Education and the United States Department of Education, ladies and gentlemen, what is your, any discussion on these? Committee Member Beaudry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stand with you to not take the test as we did. I don't believe we have to take another motion on this. We already moved that we weren't going to take the Smart Balance test. The only thing that I would suggest at this point in time that I would like to have the administration draft a parent refusal form in case we have to, if they decide to implement it, that we have refusal forms in place for those parents that do not want their students to take the Smart Balance test, or actually any statewide test. And I've said this several months now, and it's gone on deaf ears. But I believe we should have some type of policy explicit on refusal to take statewide assessment tests.
Discussion? Well, Committee Member Connors.
Thank you. Superintendent, could you speak a little bit to the ramifications if we do not take the Smarter Balance test and what that means for districts across the state as well?
Certainly for districts across the state, and according, I don't know that I could speak specifically to that other than what the Commissioner has spoken about in her letter. I did look into what, like you said, the scenario. So what if on March 15th we do not begin Smarter Balance testing? And using the letter with specific title grants, we know that from March 15th through August 31st, it would be the possibility, again, the scenario, that we would lose $5.781 million. The ramifications are we would have to figure out where those funds would come from. About 80% of that are actually is human capital, human resources. So we would have to make decisions about, the board would have to make decisions about moving forward as far as continuing to employ those folks. I did prepare a larger background information about employees that's available to the board. If you wish to see it, I would consider that confidential because of, again, we're in a scenario kind of stage.
So let me understand. What do we receive in total federal funds for the entire year?
Total 27.
It was in excess of $20 million for all of our federal funds, not just the ones that are mentioned here in the letter.
So, and what is in jeopardy for the state if we don't take our funds?
So I looked at what...
I would say that we're usually 10%. That's usually the way it runs. So there would be $50 million statewide that all other districts would be at risk for?
I think they have it now, $52 million.
I'm not...
Okay,
I'm not sure I could answer that.
All I'm saying is that normally we're 10% of what the number is, and if you reported it's about $5 million, then I would say that it's somewhere 50 statewide. Committee Member Avard, then Beaudry.
Thank you, Your Honor. What would be the repercussions if our students took the test but did extremely poorly? Let's say everybody fails the test. What happens then? Does the state pull money from us? Do we get sanctioned? Do they step in and take over our district? Or do they just say, oh, Manchester, you're not doing well, and move on?
Actually, with this being the first year, it's considered the baseline. We really couldn't compare it to prior kneecap scores because it would be like comparing apples to oranges. So it would just let us know where our students are right now.
If I may follow up.
Go ahead.
So what if we said, fine, we'll take the test, we'll tell the students, don't worry about it, don't be stressed about it, just put your name on, take the test, get whatever you get, we don't care, let's move on and get back into the classroom, so that we satisfy the state's requirement, take the test, but don't put any emphasis on it. And we still continue working on developing our own assessment And that's where we tell the students, this is where we want you to put the effort in. Just take it as a token test taken for the state's benefit. That way we comply with their rules, but we don't have to put any faith behind the value of this test that we, at this point, have already stated as a board that we don't have any faith in.
Dr. Livingston?
I'm not sure there's any ramifications of that.
But that sets a baseline, and certainly
Yes.
from the presentation I saw from Assistant Superintendent Ryan, our students are doing pretty well with the assessments we have in place. And
Yes.
that's not because of anybody telling us, here's the testing, that's because the students are learning.
Right. What we're showing you, as would a year-to-year statewide test, is how students are progressing. That's the bottom line reason we do it.
Has this district, I know that there are other states throughout the country that have refused the testing. Have they been sanctioned, thank you, sanctioned for not getting federal funds? Look,
I
you know,
put something together for you, but I don't remember exactly what that said.
You know, let me just, address, obviously, the letters, because, God rest his soul, Dr. Brennan and I was sitting in a room when somebody told the two of us, don't worry about the testing, we'll give you a waiver in 2015. That comment was also made at Bedford High School when I asked the question, what happens if the federal government changes the direction of the ship? And I believe it's on tape that said, don't waiver, there's a waiver for 2015. Now, nowhere in any of those discussions that Dr. Brennan and I had, and certainly if somebody wants to confront me with it, it was Commissioner Barry that said it, and she said it to us more than once. So it's now time to decide what we as a district, as local control, believe we're doing educationally. That's the question. And, if there are federal dollars at risk for the whole state, maybe they should change the law that they proceeded to pass and had the skids greased to get it done. So with that, I think that maybe we could get the attention of an awful lot of representatives and senators to say, what are we doing? Because I think that everybody wants to run to Concord and talk about local control. Well, this is clearly local control. This is about how do we educate the children in the city of Manchester when there is so many differences in every classroom that we attempt to educate kids in. Committee Member Beaudry, Staub, Van Houten, Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the letter, both letters, but first the letter from Commissioner Berry, the second to last paragraph, where it says, for all these reasons, SAU 37 faces serious risk of significant enforcement action if it refuses to comply with the obligation to participate in uniform statewide assessment. But then it goes on to say in the second to last sentence, the department may withhold state and federal funds and payments. So it doesn't say they shall, they may do that. And then if you look at the letter from the Assistant Secretary, second to last paragraph also, it says, in addition, SAU 37 could find itself out of compliance with provisions of federal programs that require statewide assessment results, putting additional funds at risk. So it doesn't say existing funds, it says additional funds. So, again, I stand with you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we have to make any more motions. It's really, we got to find out what we want to do, though, what type of test we want to give our students, and when we want to give it to them. But as far as the Smarter Balance test, we've already moved not to take it. So, again, it's really up to the, I guess, I don't know what committee or want to do that tonight. What test do we want to give our students, and when do we want to administer it? And secondly, I'm going to continue to beat the drum on the opt-out form, because that is something that constituents in my ward and people that have come before this board are very emphatic that, and they have a constitutional right not to take the test. So we should have a form for them to opt out. Thank you.
Any member Staub, Van Houten, Stewart, Navard.
Thank you, Your Honor. This afternoon, Arnie Duncan gave a speech about the future of No Child Left Behind, and Senator Lamar Alexander, who is a former Secretary of Education and a Republican, spoke also about how their intent is during this session of Congress to revamp No Child Left Behind. Senator Alexander is very much against the testing. A lot of people think that there's too much testing. Arnie Duncan thought that the testing was a valuable part of the No Child Left Behind. So within a year from now, this whole conversation could possibly be irrelevant. The testing may go away on its own. But I would like to say that I like Committeeman Avard's suggestion that we just do it and see how it goes and not have to worry about it in a year from now, and certainly lobby your, your congressional delegation to, to do what you think.
Our congressional delegation?
Well, I actually think it's a good idea for us to be able to compare how our students. We always talk about how in New Hampshire we're always being compared to upper middle class suburbs and small towns, and all the other school districts are apples and we're an orange. One thing about Smarter Balance, because it's national, is that our parents would have the opportunity to compare how our schools are doing to similar communities around the country, because we're all using the same test and the same criteria. So, from my point of view, I think it might be beneficial. But, I really would not like to lose $5 million from our revenue. And, this may all work itself out. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, with all due respect to Arnie Duncan, I was at Bakersville School when he came in for a photo op. And for 5 years, I've been asking for a waiver for the children that we have that take tests in this city that aren't even educated in their own language, and have yet to get a response, and I've asked them for that on 3 different occasions, and I even asked the president when I met him on the tarmac at the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport for that same waiver. This was not about anything else other than asking for a waiver for the students that we have that sit and look at a piece of paper and cry because they can't even read it. Not saying we should exempt them from testing for their entire educational career, but for 2 years or 4 years, 2 years if they've had education in their own language, 4 years if they've not even had it in their own language. So with all due respect to Arnie Duncan and it going away in 2 years, we've been looking for a waiver from the Department of Education for at least 3 years, and from Arnie Duncan himself, and he can't say that it's a falsehood because I met with him with Dr. Brennan in a conference room at Bakersville School when I took him for a detained visit through the project so he could meet some of the kids that go to Bakersville, because it was during the summer when he was here. So again, and again, that was my question to to Commissioner Barry when we were at Bedford. What happens if they change the course that we're going down? Because just as you said, in a year from now, we might not be doing it. Well, it's pretty tough to move this district as some of the other smaller districts in this state have the ability to move. I think we all understand that when we look at the changes that we try and make. So to try and change this ship, the direction of this ship from testing, when we heard tonight that our students are doing pretty well with PSATs, and I would find it almost impossible to believe that we couldn't use those tests to find out the progress of our students. So with all due respect to Arnie Duncan, I'm still waiting for a response and an answer from him. Committee Member Van Houten, Stewart, and Avard.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have two quick points of clarification. We know that there are other districts that have felt similarly. Has any other district taken any kind of action at this point to decline the Smarter Balance testing?
A few weeks ago, I did make some phone calls to some districts who had talked about this as well, and they, at this point, they have not been specific about not taking the Smarter Balance.
Thank you. And my second question refers to a letter in the not-too-distant past which intimated that funding was being withheld as kind of a pre-punishment for the anticipated action that we may take to not take Smarter Balanced. Did we ever ascertain if that's truly the reason why the funding was, I realize we have the money, but did we find out if that truly is the reason why the money was being withheld?
That's my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
Committee Member Stewart. Avard, then Langton.
Never tell this thing's on or not. So local control takes local dollars. And we're talking about $5.8 million here that's going to go away if we don't take the Smarter Balance test. Mayor, is the Board of Mayor and Aldermen prepared to raise taxes on the Manchester taxpayers to make up for any shortfall in funding that doesn't show up because we don't take this test?
Well, I think, Committee Member Stewart, how would I not think that you would ask that question knowing who you are? I can only tell you that the $5 million here costs $50 million to the state. I would think that before we have to worry about asking our taxpayers, that there are other communities in this state would be asking their representatives and their senators how they plan on making it up at the state level. So with that, I would say to you that at this time, I don't think we need to worry our taxpayers in this community about $5 million because there's $50 million at risk.
Superintendent, when do the feds need an answer from us whether or not we're taking this test?
I'm not sure that they've asked for a specific time. But again, if I looked at the last paragraph, it says the expectation is, in both letters, the expectation is that we would do the testing in March.
And right now, the board has directed you not to do the testing in
That's
March.
correct.
We took a vote on that.
No, we didn't say don't test. We said don't use the Smarter Balance test.
Correct.
Committee Member Avard, then Langton.
Quite a while ago, Your Honor, we've put out the question, I don't even remember when it was that we put out the question, I just know that we've never gotten the answer, of how many dollars come to us from federal programs, and how many dollars does that cost our district to continue to comply with federal programs. You know, we're getting approximately $20 million from the U.S. government, but how much is that costing us to fulfill the remainder of these programs? So, you know, perhaps this is the beginning of us looking at cutting those strings that turn us into puppets from the feds, and maybe taking back complete local control of our district, cutting off all the federal funds, which means getting rid of a lot of programs that we might not actually need in this district, that may be costing our taxpayers even more money. And if we look at the numbers, maybe we'll find out in the end we're actually better off without it. And I know that we've asked that in the past. If I recall, you asked the question. I don't know that we've ever gotten the answer of what do all these federal programs that we get money for truly cost us in the end.
I did ask it, and I understand that sometimes the burdens of the administration for putting things together to report back are not easy, because they have an awful lot on their plate, and they only have so many hours in the day to respond. So there's no question that I agree with you. And I think that what has to happen is that the community as a whole needs to stand together. And we need to send a very strong message to Concord. You know, this board asked to send a letter to Commissioner Barry to have her come and join us. That's probably over 8 months ago. I haven't seen her appear yet. And I know this is a tough place sometimes, but normally everybody's pretty cordial with people that come in here and respectful of their positions. Committee Member Langton, Terrio, Beaudry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Livingston, preparation for state-mandated tests as well as time required to actually conduct all components of the state required tests require significant instructional hours. Could you provide the public with an approximate amount of instructional time lost by students, teachers preparing for and taking these tests?
We can certainly put that together for you.
Would you say it's significant?
Are you speaking about Smarter Balance, or are you speaking about all of our assessments?
Smarter Balance, kneecap, in general, all of them.
Smarter Balance.
That one was going to require more so than the past few, correct?
Yes. Smarter Balance has a window of time that we have to give the assessments. The state recommended certain grade levels be tested, as you're probably aware, at certain weeks of the testing window. I'm not sure that I can give you an accurate amount of time.
Well, I would appreciate an approximate. It just seems a little bit redundant. Teachers in our district required testing, and the state's requiring testing, and it all becomes redundant, and the instructional time lost, to me, could be better used.
Committee Member Terrio, then Beaudry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Livingston. Dr. Livingston?
I got you there. Very good. I'm sorry. I didn't recognize your voice for a moment, Mr. Terrio.
Lost my train of thought. So if this district was going to participate in Smarter Balance, in your professional judgment, what do you think is the last date or approximate date that you would have to make a decision for the March 15th testing date?
I don't think that's a question we should be answering in public, because I think that exposes our hand.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's only my opinion, but certainly, Dr. Livingston, if you think it's okay, you answer it.
I'm not sure I would be able to again answer that question tonight.
Committee Member Beaudry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if it's appropriate at this time, but I'd make a motion that I move the district-wide test. The district will have to take, and the data will be given to the C&I committee that's meeting tomorrow night. I know it's late notice, but the superintendent has been working on this for quite some time. They must have some assumption of what test we would be taking and when we take it. And correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't take the Smart Balance, we can actually test our students later in the year, sometime in April, instead of going with the March date, which would give our students more time in the classroom on a district-wide assessment test. So I would like to move that to C&I for tomorrow night.
I don't have a problem you moving it there, but I would ask that they would have the discussion, not in this next meeting that they have, but the following one, to see what possibly we get from responses from other districts, and also the
I just
commissioner.
didn't know if we needed time, because of time restraints.
I think that local control is an important issue, Committee Member Beaudry. And if we decide to do it in April, so be it.
Okay, then I will take the time frame off, but I would move that the district-wide assessment test be sent to C&I on what test will be given and what date the test will be given.
Second? Second by Committee Member Avard. Discussion?
Roll call.
Hold on, don't worry, you'll get a chance to either, do you have a discussion?
No, my only discussion is we're putting $5.8 million in play and over 100 personnel for something that the state and the feds have told us repeatedly for the last 2 years we're going to do. That'd be my only discussion. So I'm going to be opposed.
Committee Member Dunphy.
We don't want it. We don't want the Department of Education in our local matters. We don't want the state of New Hampshire's Department of Education in our business. We don't want the Office of Civil Rights breathing down our throat for no reasons. We want to have local control. And I'm still not understanding why, at minimum, we do not have an opt-out letter. That has been requested for months. That's been at least since June or July, that we also have that. That should already be done.
Would you like to make a motion to send that to C&I so that they can?
We should be able to vote for that here.
Well, I understand, but can we get them to put together an opt-out letter? Can we have C&I do that at their next meeting?
Amend my motion,
Well,
Committee
I
Woman.
won't be there for tomorrow night, so I'm hoping we
The
can do
next-
it for the next meeting.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect?
I would like to make a
Committee
I'll
Member
second
Dunphy,
that as an
second by
amendment.
Committee Member you want to amend it onto your,
Yes.
will you accept that
I
as a?
accept it.
Okay, so it's amended. So we're going to, second is Committee Member Beaudry on the amendment. So we will vote on the amendment first. You got all of that?
Yeah. The amendment on the floor right now is that the administration would create an opt-out form for testing, and we'll vote on that motion
And then we'll
first.
vote on that motion first. Committee Member Stewart.
Should we go into non-public and take a look at the list of the superintendents put together, of the dozens of personnel whose jobs are putting in jeopardy with this right now?
No, I think that we have motions in front of us. Nothing's in jeopardy until this board or the state decides to shut off the funding.
Roll
Roll
call.
call.
Committee Member Beaudry?
Yes.
Committee Member Avard?
Yes.
Committee Member DeRocher?
Yes.
Committee Member Van Houten?
Yes.
Committee Member Ambrosi?
Yes.
Committee Member Langton?
Yes.
Committee Member Stewart? Committee Member Bradley is absent. Committee Member Rokas?
Yes.
Committee Member Dunphy?
Yes.
Committee Member Wibby?
Yes.
Committee Member Staub?
No.
Committee Member Terrio?
Yes.
Committee Member Connors?
No.
Mayor Gatsas?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Now the main motion, Mr. Chairman?
Now the main motion.
The original motion that was on the floor was to refer the district-wide assessment test to the C&I committee, and that would include what test is to be taken and when the test would be taken.
Request a roll call on that also, please.
Roll call has been requested.
Committee Member Beaudry?
Yes.
Committee Member Avard?
Yes.
Committee Member DeRocher?
Yes.
Committee Member Van Houten?
Yes.
Committee Member Ambrosi?
Yes.
Committee Member Langton?
Yes.
Committee Member Stewart? Committee Member Bradley is absent. Committee Member Rokas?
Yes.
Committee Member Dunphy?
Yes.
Committee Member Wibby?
Yes.
Committee Member Staub?
Yes.
Committee Member Terrio?
Yes.
Committee Member Connors?
No.
Mayor Gatsas?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Personnel report.